you had a massive earthquake February 6th, 2023 in Turkey, Syria, and Lebanon, right? And the devastation it's really heartbreaking. You have 2,000 people dead. There's tens of thousands wounded. Here you can see, just very quickly, here's a map. There you go. You can see the impact of the earthquake, right? So Aleppo is hit very hard. And the epicenter, of course, in southern Turkey. Here's the report from Reuters. So a huge earthquake killed more than 2,700 people across a swath of Turkey and northwest Syria on Monday, with freezing winter weather adding to the plight of the thousands left injured or homeless and hampering efforts to find survivors. The magnitude 7.8 quake, so this is 7.8 on the Richter scale. The magnitude 7.8 earthquake brought down whole apartment blocks in Turkish cities and piled more devastation on millions of Syrians displaced by years of war. So that, again, that's something very important that I want to touch on in regards to Syria after I give you the basic facts. So this person here, he said it was like the apocalypse, right? And the videos are harrowing. I mean, truly. The second earthquake was big enough to bring down more buildings, and like the first, was felt across the region, endangering rescuers struggling to pull casualties from the rubble. So you guys understand what happened? There was a massive earthquake and then another one while they're trying to rescue people from the first earthquake. I mean, this is like a double suicide bombing. It's just absolute terror. Absolute terror. Really tragic. And these are called aftershocks, right? So you still have more than one of these aftershocks. So there's a woman in Turkey said, "We were shaken like a cradle. There were 9 of us at home. 2 of my sons are still in the rubble and I'm waiting for them." It's heartbreaking, really. This is the largest earthquake recorded worldwide by the U.S. Geological Survey since a tremor in the remote South Atlantic in August 2021. And Turkey has a death toll of 1,651 people. That's from the health minister. And 11,100 people injured. Okay, so that's just Turkey. That's just Turkey. Now, when we talk about Syria, 1,073 people were killed in Syria. I don't know the exact number of wounded. I'm assuming it's a couple of thousand. Turkey, this is the largest death toll they've had from an earthquake since 1999. I wanted to show you something which is absolutely staggering. There's a Dutch researcher, and I had him on just a few hours ago. For those of you who are watching, if you missed it, the interview's on the channel. He predicted this earthquake. He actually predicted the magnitude and the exact location 3 days ago. This is on Twitter. This is one of the most viral tweets I've ever seen. It's like 35 million views, something insane. So he posted on February 3rd. This is Frank Hugerbeets. He said, quote, "Sooner or later, there will be a magnitude 7.5 earthquake in this region, South Central Turkey, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon." I mean, this is a prediction with stunning accuracy. There's only so much you can do about infrastructure, right? I just don't understand why people weren't better prepared for this. Why, people weren't warned. Because if he's doing the research, and I'm sure there are many others who are also highly invested and dedicated to this work, it's just heartbreaking. That's why it.
حي العزيزية في حلب مبنى قوات الدفاع المدني عم تتدخل.
This is a beautiful mosque. This is in Damascus. It's a blue mosque, right? I visited it when I was younger. Sayyidat Zainab, and you can see in Damascus. Right, so just again for context, Damascus is all the way down here, right? So it's still in the zone, but not in the epicenter. But all the way down in Damascus, look at how the mosque was shaking from the inside in the earthquake. And again, I can't overstate the beauty of this mosque. Truly beautiful. People in Lebanon felt the earthquake. I've seen tons of friends and acquaintances talking about how in Beirut, everything was shaking. It's terrifying. I remember there was an earthquake in Pakistan once. I mean, I remember the house shaking. It's not a nice feeling. It's not. It's really not a nice feeling. I'll tell you that. This is from Turkey. Look at this. Devastating. This castle, which is 2,200 years old, Gaziantep Castle, destroyed by the earthquake. This is before. This is after. You know, one of the first things I did, I went and checked Crac des Chevaliers, which is it's considered the best preserved medieval castle on planet Earth. It's in Syria, and as far as I can tell, and I hope I'm right, there's been no damage to that castle. But you know, again, this is really heartbreaking seeing this kind of stuff, and the loss of life. I mean, the loss of life comes first, but this is also sad. And again, this is from the 2nd century, just completely gone. You know, really, really sad. I want to tell you about the rescue efforts because look, any country, whether it's a quote unquote developed, right, a developed country or a developing country, is going to have trouble dealing with an earthquake of this magnitude, right? It's terrible for everybody, and the rescue efforts are perilous and difficult. And there are tons of people who right now still trapped under the rubble, which makes, you know, which is gut-wrenching. And Syria is a special case because Syria has been dealing with sanctions. Okay, so you've had 10 years of war, all sorts of countries trying to destroy the place. They've thrown everything, including the kitchen sink, at Syria. They've sent terrorists, you know, they've done sabotage, they've destroyed infrastructure, they've displaced millions. And now on top of it, Syria, which has no infrastructure capable of dealing with this, has to deal with this. And I just want to show you how disgusting this is because, you know, Joe Biden, he puts out a statement on Twitter saying he cares, right? He says here that I'm deeply saddened by the loss of life and devastation caused by the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. I've directed my team to continue to closely monitor the situation with Turkey, right? Not with Syria, with Turkey, and provide any and all needed assistance. Yeah, where's the assistance to Syria? I don't want anything from Joe Biden except for him to leave. Yeah, because it's very nice to say, "Oh, I'm so sad for the loss of life." No, you're not. You're really not. Because when Donald Trump left and you came, you kept all of his policies that are, you know, all of these aggressive, offensive, bullyish tactics against Syria. You left them in place. Caesar Act sanctions are still there. Stealing the oil, still doing it. All of this hurts Syria, even without an earthquake. And now on top of it, in a situation like this where there's a disaster, it makes it even more difficult to deal with the disaster. So you don't care about the loss of life. You're a liar. You are a liar. If you cared, you would lift the sanctions. If you cared, you would stop stealing the oil. If you cared, you would pay back all of the damage you caused to the country, the destroyed infrastructure, the loss of life, the reparations, all of the oil that you stole. You would pay this back and then you would leave. You would remove your troops and go home to the other side of the planet where you belonged. But you don't do that, and you don't care about the loss of life. So I don't respect Joe Biden. I don't care about his stupid statement, which he probably didn't even write and was done by some staffer. I mean, it's just insulting, you know. And I want to tell you also, there are several countries that have said they will help Syria. Okay, so I'll give you a list. There's Algeria, Tunisia, Iraq, Lebanon, Russia, Iran, India. But when it comes to the Europeans, so, you know, they said they'll help Turkey, but not Syria, right? And you can see that in Biden's language as well, because Biden says, "Oh, we're going to monitor this closely with Turkey, but not with Syria." Well, I'm sorry, man, but the earthquake didn't care. It hit Turkey and Syria, both of them. So, you know, there are people suffering on both sides. It's not just in Turkey. But, you know, it's just disgusting because even in an emergency like this, you can still see how there's this bias, there's this animosity, and you know, just disregard, right, for human life. They just don't care, you know. And I'm not saying they shouldn't send help to Turkey. Of course they should, by all means. But why not send it to Syria? And again, don't get me wrong. Some countries are. I just gave you the list. And there'll probably be more after I've done this video or in a few hours, you know, because it's a developing situation. But the damage has already been done, you know, in my opinion. And again, I think this is very objective. It's not an opinion. It's a simple fact. Syria would have been able to deal with this a little bit better had it not been subjected to 10 years of war, had it not been subject to sanctions. That's just a fact. You know, it's just a fact. You can't cripple someone and then kick them while they're down and just leave them there, because this is like, you need a tremendous rescue effort and they just can't put it together. it's thank you. You know, all the countries that are sending teams, it's very nice. But if those are, if you know, if there are also countries that put sanctions, they should probably lift the sanctions too, because that would help a lot. There's a plane from Iran that just landed in Syria, though. But I was just thinking of all the places that have been devastated. We're talking about northern Syria, right? Aleppo is actually the worst hit city from the war. I mean, they took so long to rebuild, and they haven't even finished. So on top of the war, Aleppo now re-experiencing these scenes from the war. It's really, really horrible. The Iranian plane just landed in Damascus, right? So Damascus airport. I assuming it works after the Israelis keep, blowing it up. Speaking of the Israelis, do you want to see something funny? This is from Times of Israel, but you can find it in other outlets. Netanyahu, right, said that Israel had received requests through diplomatic channels to assist in Syria and that aid would be provided there. No, that's not true. That's a lie. That's just a lie. This didn't happen. And look, the Syrian government has come out officially and said, we never asked Israel for anything. But even if they had not given this statement, I don't need that statement. I know that this is rubbish. This is rubbish. Maybe Netanyahu is talking about his friends in Jabhat al-Nusra and ISIS, right? Because those guys got aid for sure, right? What did they do, these quote unquote rebels, when they were in Dar'a and they were in northern Turkey and being protected by NATO and protected by Israel? They got aid from the Israelis, some of them, right? You had I think it was Netanyahu himself visiting them in hospital. These are guys from Al-Qaeda. These are people who in the West would be put in jail, right? Like they would be sent to Guantanamo Bay. But because now they were helping to destroy Syria, they're helping the West. Oh, now they're friends. Now they're okay, right? So I don't know who he's talking about in Syria, but I really have immense trouble believing that Syria would ask Israel for help. That is so ridiculous. There are so many countries, real countries, that Syria would ask for help from first, and even if none of them had accepted, I really doubt it would take anything from Israel. This is ridiculous. There are no ties between Syria and Israel. There are no diplomatic channels between them. The best you have is perhaps mediators like Russia, but again, this is just very it's just not credible. It's very, very hard to believe, and I don't think there's any truth to this. So, again, just going back to the map, we're talking about northern Syria being hit. Aleppo, Hama, Latakia. Latakia is on the coast, on the Mediterranean, Ladiyeh. So, they're going to be hit the hardest. But even in Damascus, even in Lebanon, you're feeling the earthquake. Like, just so you understand, we're talking about from the epicenter all the way down to Damascus, all the way down to Lebanon, to Beirut. They're feeling this earthquake. That's how powerful it is. And, Frank Hugerbeets, who I had on earlier, the Dutch researcher, he says that there's going to be, there will be even more aftershocks. And I highly recommend you go and watch the interview I did with him because, stunning accuracy and in his prediction, and he knows what he's talking about. So I hope that, all the people are rescued and that the sanctions are lifted, because any country can barely deal with this. But with sanctions, my God. I mean, I've heard lots of stories about how people in Iran, for example, because of the sanctions, they can't get medication, life-saving medication that they need for their family. Can't get it because Donald Trump and Joe Biden, they just want to screw with Iran. This is evil. And then you look at Syria, airplane parts. Oh, can't buy them. Medical equipment, dialysis machines, can't buy them. Just punishment, absolute cruel punishment. And now on top of it, it's too much to take. It's very, very sad.